Welcome back, 9 to noon.
So what's up here?
Yeah, well, we got some camp cuts, PA. We are all obviously locked in. You're going to be out in Eagan later today as the Vikings start their process, of course. But camp cuts, the Vikings are but one of 32, PA. So I found some audio and also a little nugget that just ran across my screen here that I'm going to throw out to you. But we're headed out to the Bay. And you had Greg Papa on, Niners Vox, yesterday. And I have some audio here talking about Brandon Ayuk. So at first, it's like, okay, he feels like odd man out. You're talking about Trent Williams and MV3s, and we got Deebo Samuel. A lot of people, George Kittle, a lot of people making money. But what about Brandon Ayuk, who, by all accounts, has probably vaulted himself, specifically after last season? He's got to be a talker when you start, if you're going to do a list, PA, like the top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. You have to have Brandon Ayuk, I think, as part of that conversation.
Top 10? Well, Deebo's one on their team. So Deebo is probably the most important player to the 49ers offense, probably. I mean, they got an embarrassment of riches.
So would you consider Deebo giving the rushing option and some of those other things?
And physical nature.
Still, ultimately, but you would group all of that into as just a wide receiver. Yes. I mean, it gets semantics in the mix as well. But
hey, Ayuk's a badass, man. And Ayuk is, in sneaky fashion, one of the NFL's best run-blocking wide receivers. He just doesn't play as much as Deebo or Kittle. Now, Kittle, I said this last year at this time, that I could argue George Kittle is the best overall tight end in the NFL because of the blocking and the pass protecting. And, I mean, just look at the players from whom he's catching passes and what he's doing over the years.
And he doesn't have the usage rate of a Kelsey. And so if you put him in Kelsey's spot, could you get Kelsey-like production?
Travis Kelce on the Netflix series Receiver called George Kittle the best tight end in the NFL. And that was into the Super Bowl. Now, it could have been, it's the right thing to say. But it is an apples or oranges thing. But with Ayuk, top 10-ish in the NFL, I'd have to think about it and write down names. I mean, from the first second I saw Amon-Ra St. Brown, I couldn't wait to get on the microphone and say, this is a top 10 receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
And it may not be now, but...
Well, I think he is now.
Oh, absolutely. No, I said this a couple of years ago. I could not believe what I was seeing when I would watch back Lions games getting ready for the Vikings with...
The way he put Cam Dantzler on skates in the end zone?
Well, you got that, but you have what he does away from the ball. I mean, he is scrappy. He was just raised very well to play football. But with Brandon Ayuk, he fits perfectly to what Next Level Shanny wants to do. They want to threaten the pass and run. And they threaten the pass enough and run well enough with Deebo and or Christian McCaffrey that it messes with coverage. So Ayuk and his physicality meshes with Juwan Jennings, who's also incredibly physical, as is Deebo Samuel. I can't see any way they let Ayuk go. But, Brandon's from that Ballyhoo 2020 receiver draft. And quite honestly, if the Eagles had done the right thing and taken Justin Jefferson, I firmly believe the Vikings would have taken Brandon Ayuk. So
he was a talker into that draft. Yeah.
Right. No doubt. And so for Ayuk, he's just a piece that I don't think that they can do without. At a window time, the Super Bowl aspirations are absolutely there. And they're eventually going to have to pay Brock Purdy. I mean, it may not be, the greatest, the grandest deal in the history of the NFL, but they're going to have to pay him more than he makes now. So they're thinking about that. What's our MV3? McCaffrey, need him to stay. Deebo, need him to stay. Trent Williams, need him to stay, but he's right at the end. Nick Bosa, is he part of an MV3? What about Ayuk? So it's
they have like an MV6 out there.
Brandon is very, very important to what they do.
And John Lynch says that he's going to be there.
We fully intend on Brandon being a Niner moving forward. We're always open to listen to things, but like I said, we expect Brandon to be an integral part of our team like he has been, and excited about that.
So that's where things sit. Of course, there's been some trade requests in the mix earlier this summer, both sides talking. No solution yet, but Ayuk wants to be paid, and the Niners got to figure it out. Now we're going coast to coast, PA.
You happen to know what the Niners salary cap situation is like?
No, I don't have it in front of me, but all those guys, you're talking about the MV6. You got a defensive end in Bosa that, until some other deals have popped, he was the highest paid DN in the league, highest paid non-QB for a minute. Then you have Trent Williams. I bet he's 30 against the cap. Debo Samuel's 25 against the cap.
Yep.
McCaffrey, they might actually be getting, running back wise, you can always get a little discount on that, but he's probably making 16 to 18.
I got it.
Oh, perfect.
They're -4 as of right now.
Yeah.
They got a problem. Because they're minus, according to Spot Rack, they're minus $4,047,000. Now, they're not the first team to be in that position, having to sign player or players. And then players will be cut to make room. Now, Ayuk, I ain't saying he wants a Jefferson deal, but, he wants something close. So you come at it from minus $4 million in cap space as of now to what my man wants. I'm not an elite Rob Brzezinski mind. I just don't know how you get out of this,
Oh, my goodness. McCaffrey's making 6.6.
Ooh.
And then you have, Charvarius Ward. What can they do about that money? He's making 18 this year. Remember when Charvarius was a complete L for the Chiefs? He heads out to the Niners, and now suddenly he's been a stud.
Yeah.
He's a free agent. He's a free agent next year with a couple of void years. Mm-hmm. But 18 against the cap. Ugh.
Well, Fred Warner, one of the better linebackers in the NFL. Fred Warner is okay. So Fred, his base is 1-1, but they're going to have to deal. Oh yeah, he goes to 17 next year. All right. So wow.
And his cap hits at 12.
Wow. Right. His cap hit next year. Oh, so this might have to be the answer. Fred Warner, their linebacker, he goes from $1 million on the base to 17.6 on the base next year. His cap hit goes from 12 million to 30 million. So this is a pick your poison situation here. Because you can't keep McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle, Trent Williams, Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk, Fred Warner, and Nick Bosa. You can't keep them all, unless they all are willing to.
Well, Greenlaw's in his final year.
Play. If
that might actually be it. If you were going to pick one, Greenlaw tears up his Achilles in the playoffs last year. He's on the pup.
Right. Well,
that might solve the situation there, as he's worth 9.6 this year, and then he drops off.
Yeah. So that would be. I like that. Yeah. So there's a 9. There's a 9 that you can. Well, you're still not close. 9 brings you to +5. It's like with Warner. Okay.
They have to cut Warner just to be where the Vikings have been in previous years.
After the 49ers cut Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and Dre Greenlaw, we might be up in this thing. Let's go.
Camp cuts
I'm glad you brought that up. That's this is much more of a perplexing situation than I thought. And Kyle Juszczyk is the best, most multifaceted fullback in the NFL. They got Kyle to cut his money. It might have been $3 million. So they started finding money for Ayuk to get to a -4. Holy cow. The Niners not winning the Super Bowl last year. They might, I'm not going to.
in trouble.
Well,
not this year. But.
I was going to say that. They might be in some trouble, even though they'll probably win 12 or 13 games. With whomever they have.
Except for week 2.
Well, simply, they're going to be in trouble because winning the division is cool. Getting to the NFC title game is cool. This is a Super Bowl winning team right now.
Yep.
And the Lions are younger, and the Lions have markedly more cap space. They got Penei Sewell locked up. They got Amon-Ra St. Brown locked up. Aiden Hutchinson is going to be next, but then they're going to have to deal with Jahmyr Gibbs. But they that's 4 right there.
Yep.
And Gibbs, they still have 3 years until they got to deal with that 5th-year option.
Same with Laporta.
And Laporta too. Wow. Holy cow. And
Laporta was second round, right? I believe
second.
so.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Gibbs into Laporta. Yeah.
Yes, in that nice tight end draft.
So there might even be more urgency there, given the fact they don't have the 5th year with Laporta. And, I mean, if year one's any indicator,
right? Aiden Hutchinson, they're 2 years from executing his 5th year option, so they're cool there. But they're the Lions, they are primed on many levels to be the best team in the NFC for a handful of years.
Yeah.
And it bears fruit looking at this 49er cap situation. Jeez, the 49ers to a certain extent, I was going to say did what the Rams did, but no, they actually had draft picks, but they also, they played fantasy football with Christian McCaffrey and who else?
And Trent Williams, they traded for him a few years ago.
You. Right. Highly, very good players who require a lot of money.
Yep.
But
Trent's going to drop. I mean, Trent can't play forever. I don't know how old he is. Maybe you have that in
like
front
14th year, something like that. But the difference between the Rams,
he's 36 right now.
The difference between the Rams and the Niners, the Rams got the money.
They did.
The Rams went all in via fantasy football, and they got it.
And they might be on their way back too. I mean, after all that. Well, they have that defensive. I forget what his name is. Corey, the interior lineman. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, they used Aaron Donald and that guy, and that guy had like 8, 9, or 10 sacks last year, man. I think as a rookie.
And they got Kyron Williams. They got Puka. I mean, I think they're. I'm not saying they're going to compete for the Super Bowl this year,
right?
But they kind of had just that one downish season.
Yeah.
And they have figured out now with draft capital to start actually replenishing. McVay, they were talking about him walking off into the sunset at like 37 years old after winning a title.
Yeah, he became complicated there for about a month. He was going to go to TV.
Correct.
I'm just going to sit out.
But then they bought that $10 million draft house, and now he realized, that's right, I got it pretty good out here.
Wow.
But they're on their way back. They're on the come a little bit. Last thing on the Niners, and then I'm going to jump out to New England.
Yeah.
Is I saw this. Kyle Shanahan, this is what he said with the TK show, Tim Kawakami of The Athletic, that he offered Belichick a spot on his staff. And Belichick turned him down. I did. I threw it out to him, Shanahan said.
That's the greatest news every player on that team received.
He loves football so much that you never know what I can't believe that he's not a head coach of a team right now. I know what I would do if I was an owner, so that shocks me. And the last thing you want to do is insult someone like Bill Belichick. Can you picture hey, is it cool if you come over here and you're just like a consultant? Could you just be like a defensive assistant? Right. But I know he just loves ball in its simplest form, so I threw it out to him, whatever he wanted to do. That included the team's defensive coordinator position, a job that was filled when they promoted Nick Sorensen. What if after Nick
Sorensen is their defensive coordinator, former safety?
I believe so, yeah.
Holy cow,
Nick
good luck
Sorensen's
to him.
the name, and but Belichick almost joined Shanahan.
Yeah.
Super special Shanny. We got Hoodie. I wonder how that would have worked.
Well, they would have been like minus 13 under the cap had they signed Belichick. He ain't going to come in there for $100,000. I have obviously immense respect for Bill Belichick. He's the greatest and most successful coach in the history of the NFL. The most successful coach in the history of the NFL, which in turn, could have a greatest tag to it. But having him around, that's just weird. From a player standpoint, it's, I'm not saying it would be a full-fledged distraction, but it's Bill Belichick, man. It's not like you're bringing in Dom Capers, as your consultant or associate head coach or whatever. Same thing with Pete Carroll. It's good that Pete's sitting out a year.
Yeah.
And Pete might be done. Pete's up there in his 70s. And but having Pete around, how do you have Pete tone down the energy?
Right.
What do you do when Pete comes out to the walkthrough with his whistle?
He's chewing gum.
He's blowing his whistle, and they're doing the college drills. Like 15 years ago or whatever, I was at Seattle, and I was watching the Seahawks do their pregame stretch and everything, and my man Pete Carroll had a whistle.
And an Oklahoma drill broke out.
He was blowing the whistle, and they were like doing college drills. And of course, we lost. So the next week, Minnesota Vikings head coach Leslie Frazier had a whistle. I'm just kidding. But a couple of immortality HOF-like names out there in Belichick and Carroll.
Out to New England, camp cuts. New head coach Gerard Mayo talking about the quarterback position, specifically Jacoby Brissett.
Coming out of the spring, I don't think there's any doubt Jacoby is the starting quarterback at this point in time. We can look at these other quarterbacks on the roster at the same time. Like it's about competition. And so when we get out on the field this summer with the pads on, we'll see how it all plays out. But, coming out of the spring, I think it's clear that Jacoby is the most pro-ready guy we have and play a lot of football.
And then he would continue on another cut here on Drake May.
The goal for Drake is just to get better each and every day. And look, it's not a straight line up to the top. There will be ups and downs, but if you look left to right, you just hope that if he started here, he's here. And once again, if he comes out here and he takes full advantage and lights it up, like he could be the day one quarterback. But like I said, coming out of the spring, I think it's Jacoby.
So they're having a similar but different conversation out east, right? Yeah. Jacoby, veteran presence. He's been terrific in short stints as a backup.
Yeah.
But Drake's third overall. Like Drake.
He's 21. I mean, he might have just turned 22. He was one of the younger ones, like our guy. Yeah, what's I'm tripping right now. The LSU quarterback went to Washington jail.
Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels, thank you. All right, he's out of this conversation. He was taken second overall, I believe, right? Second
overall, and Drake does turn 22 August 30th.
Okay, yeah. So
super young still.
Right. So this all leads to right back to the Anti-Vike. I mean, if he starts Bo Nix and it's working, I mean, it's going to get loud here. It's going to get loud there. And, we'll see. Listening to Mayo talk about May, it sounded like O'Connell talking about McCaffrey. You may just have said that, and if you do, I apologize.
No, I did not. No, that's exactly. So it's that they're dealing with it from a different situation. I think Jaden Daniels is absolutely the bona fide starter in Washington.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what their plan is otherwise, but I would believe that Jaden Daniels is absolutely in the mix. Camp cuts.
Good.
Aaron Rodgers on missing OTAs. He thinks people are overblowing it.
The thing that I think people don't understand is that when I was in the NFC North and playing for that team, years ago, there used to be a real thing called minicamp, where it was you had one of them usually. Sometimes it was right after the draft, but either way, it was 5 practices in 3 days: Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So 2 practices on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. Now it's not minicamp. They can arbitrarily put a tag on whatever week of OTAs they want to say this is the mini camp week, which makes it somehow more mandatory than the other weeks. But it was an OTA schedule. That's how it's, how words can be a little deceiving from time to time. You can make a story out of the fact that I missed a mini camp when it was really 2 OTA days.
Right. Interesting.
That came to the first 10.
Okay, man.
So he was in Egypt. He's climbing the pyramids.
The mini camp was mandatory. Okay, and his coach was caught off guard, and in the first press conference said this absence from mandatory minicamp is not excused. So Robert Saleh didn't like it, and then it was Julian Edelman, I believe, was on a radio show, and he was talking about Brady, and then like Tom, I mean, absolutely. Never, ever, 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 ever would skip anything mandatory.
Right.
And so the semantics and the way Rodgers just laid it out there, I just don't believe it. So it was an unexcused absence. Stuff like that does not go over well in the locker room, even though nobody's going to speak up because he's juicy A-Rod. And we'll just see where it goes from here. But those were unexcused absences. His I, not thy approach to the offseason sent him away on a schedule that was best for him, but not best for the team.
I mean, he could have gone to Egypt in March, right? Right. He could have planned any of these things.
Exactly.
Anything he could have done during or had to do during minicamp, he could have done it at a different time, especially fresh off the Achilles. It's all go. We got Garrett Wilson. We got the whole thing. Camp cuts. Here's Mike Vrabel, former head coach of the Titans, talking about not getting the Chargers job.
Thought I had great interview in L.A., for the Chargers. And, Harbaugh decided to come back to the NFL. And that's what, Mr. Spanos and John Spanos communicated with me. And I respect them for that. They literally called me on a,
Didn't string you along,
No, they called me, and that rarely happens to where, if an owner is going to interview you and then go in a different direction, that they'll personally call you. And they were like, second place isn't going to give you much, but I wanted to tell you that, we just had an opportunity to hire, John Harbaugh. So that's how it goes. Or Jim Harbaugh.
The only reason I play that, PA, is because he is now an assistant for Stefanski's Browns.
Yeah.
So you're going to be in Cleveland in a few weeks here, and you might see Mike Vrabel running around the sidelines. I think that's cool that, albeit you had some ups and downs with the Titans, but certainly a pretty highly respected defensive mind. He's hanging out with Stefanski on the shores of Lake Erie.
We will see what Kevin says when yours truly gets back there August 13th, and he absolutely will be on the radio show, because it's my belief Kevin wants the Browns to play more physically. They have physical players, but the question is, do they play physically? Vrabel is 10 of 10 toughness guy, and his relatability with players is high end. Now, it didn't work out, with the situation they had in Tennessee, where the general manager, John Robinson, got fired. I mean, the owners got so bored with him after watching A.J. Brown for Philadelphia go from like 225-3 3 weeks in a row. They just fired the GM during the season, and Vrabel was next. So that's a wonderful ad for Kevin. Another smart football mind to join the likes of Kevin, who's very smart. Bill Musgrave is incredibly intelligent. Kevin Rogers, he was the quarterback's coach here in 2009 for Brett Favre. He's a very smart man, and there are others. So good for Mike. Good for Mike. I told you yesterday I got to meet his son, Carter, in Mankato Monday night at a home run derby.
Yeah.
He plays for the University of Tennessee Martin. And Carter's a cool cat, man. So I hope he gets to the major leagues, and I'm looking forward to seeing Mike Vrabel.
It's weird about what you're saying, though, maybe if he wants the team to play more physical, is there any of that's on Jim Schwartz? Because Jim Schwartz, albeit never really amounted to much as a head coach.
Right.
I think he's been a pretty damn good defensive coordinator over the years. He was with Philly when they won the Super Bowl 2017.
Yeah.
He came back and kind of revitalized things a year ago for the Browns. Like, is that going to be Vrabel standing over the shoulder of Schwartz there? That's kind of interesting.
That's a good question, because I don't necessarily think the physicality of it necessarily is all coming from defense.
Okay.
Myles Garrett is 10 of 10. Physical, stylistically sound, and smart every single play. Now, we remember old Za'Darius Smith when he was here. Now, when Za'Darius was healthy and engaged, that's an amazingly physical presence. Okay, he'll run through you, he'll truck you, he'll beat you up right out on the field. That wasn't the case game after game after game. He was inconsistent.
What about Dalvin Tomlinson?
So, Tomlinson's a physical player. So it's just whether it's their offensive line in a run-first offense trying to get Deshaun through whatever through which he's struggling. And Amari Cooper is a very physical receiver, one of the toughest guys in the history of the NFL to check singled up at the line of scrimmage. I just think with Vrabel, they're adding an elite football mind who reeks toughness and can get through to players of this generation without yelling, without demeaning or yelling. So, that Vrabel edition's fantastic.
Well, that wraps up today's version of Camp Cuts, and we'll try to do this as often as possible.
Love it.
We're focused on the Vikings, but we'll take some peeks around the NFL.
Well, around the corner, for better or for worse, we have something called Pick One for Paulie.
Yeah.
And this was an idea that was generated by a couple of young men at the Rube Party at, what was it called? Forgotten Star?
Forgotten Star Brewing, yeah.
For that very, very cool place up Ridley Way.
It was awesome.
So yours truly is chatting with a couple of guys, and I apologize that I can't remember your names. But they asked me about an old school Vikings football game, and I responded with some details from it. And then one of them, asked about another one. So then I called Nordo over, and the kids, the guys, the Rubes came up with something called Pick One for Paulie, and it involves Vikings games over the last 22 years. and we will unfurl that around the corner. But first, here's Nordo.
The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. All you got to do is go to KFAN.com, use the keyword green. You might win $1,000 with the keyword green at KFAN.com.
All right, so pick one for Paulie, I guess is what we're calling it for now. We're going to have fun with it. Hopefully you like it. This is Rube Party generated from last Friday.
Yeah.
And I like the quick twitch nature of this game. Facets of games, assumedly, over the course of calling Vikings football for 22 years. There have been a lot of games, a lot of moments, a lot of memorable moments, a lot of heartbreaks. There's been exultation, and there also have been incredibly nondescript games. So I'm chatting with these Rubes, a couple of very nice guys. One of them might have been that cat Jake, who jumped up on the stage during the calls bit. Or
nope, these guys were different.
They were different.
They were absolutely different. I just don't remember their names either. I feel bad about it now.
It's all good. Hopefully they're listening now, because that was you and that was you. They're peppering me on games from the past, but it's not like 09 NFC title game only, or Minneapolis Miracle game, or the 03 game against the Cardinals, or Greg Lewis. It's not that. It was like some obscure games one of the guys asked me about, and it triggered the thought, mostly from them, to spend some time in Skull Story-like fashion, sharing memories off the cuff with either listeners peppering yours truly via 64686 or Nordo, just pulling a game from a hat and to see how quick twitch I can go on it. And it, like Brett Blakemore, he's across from me now, assumedly producing the program around the corner. Like, I was chatting with Brett Blakemore the other day about a game, and he does a fair amount of audio production, like with former Vikings games for whatever. And he was listening to the Vikings at Bears in 2003. All right, this was 2 weeks, I believe, before the game at Arizona. Where at the end of the game, I freaked out and went, no, the Cardinals have knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs. I mean, Double B was all excited, man. He's like, you dropped a very emotional no bomb 2 weeks before that at Soldier Field.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what? I didn't remember it at all. And I can't say that I remember that from the 03 Soldier Field call, but like, here's the essence of the bit. Pick a game for Paulie.
Yeah.
Between 02 and the game at the Lions last year, the finale to finish things. The finale at the end of the 2023. But like Bears 03 at Soldier Field. And see, I will turn and look at you when we chat, just so you know there's no chicanery, and I got like a computer in front of me.
Oh, yeah. But I even offered you notes, and you turned them down.
The Vikings lost that game, 03 at Chicago. Had they won the game, I believe they would have won the division. And the next week, they played either Miami or Kansas City. I think it might have been Miami at Metrodome with Chris Carter, and it was Chris Carter's final game at Metrodome, or Kansas City, and the Vikings scored in the 50s. And then they went to Arizona, and they lost. But if they had beaten Chicago, whose quarterback, I believe, was Craig or Chad Hutchinson. I think it was Chad Hutchinson. If they had won that game, they would have won the division and the no out of the playoffs. That never would have taken place. And it came right down to the wire, where Culpepper found Randy Moss front right of the end zone with under a minute and change to go, and they're going to win the game. And this rookie from Louisiana Lafayette, Charles Peanut Tillman, stripped the ball from him, and the Vikings lost. A game where R.W. McQuarters and Randy Moss almost got into a nasty-ass fight as they were heading to the tunnels right before halftime. And Peanut Tillman went down in history as being perhaps the greatest fumble-forcing cornerback in the history of the NFL, and it all started right there, front right of the end zone, 03, his rookie season, stealing it from HOF Randy Moss. So that's like, if you pick one for Paulie, there also may be crickets. It may be like this team in 2006, this game in 2006. Oh, hey, oh, okay. Well, oh yeah. And there's that side of it too.
Wow. Okay. Well,
So I'm going to get stumped on some, but very much looking forward to having the listeners pick games for certain patches of the last 22 years. And we'll see if some sweet skull stories emerge from the equation.
well, now I feel like I put training wheels on this thing because I actually think my games that I have for you now are way too easy. So I'm going to I might have to intentionally get nondescript and say basically like Houston Texans game 2012. We're down in Houston.
Yeah.
Adrian en route to MVP. Your thoughts? I might have
Okay.
to. And actually, that's not even a nondescript game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to. But let's.
No, that was a big game because the Texans had the best record in the NFL. And if they had won that game, they either would have solidified the 1 seed in the AFC or they were like an inch from it.
And the Vikes had to win the Final Four just to get into the playoffs.
And that was the time of the season where Bill Musgrave, the offensive coordinator, completely lost trust in Christian Ponder. Absolutely lost trust. There was an awkward moment at Seattle that year between Percy Harvin and Christian Ponder. And that was the season. Musgrave was like, I don't care if you cheat and put 13 in the box. I'm running this guy every single play until you can stop it. And Bill ran Adrian to the MVP, but the game you referenced was about defense. The Vikings' defense that game against Matt Schaub and the work they did on Andre Johnson was unbelievably good. And the Vikings had a defensive touchdown that day. I want to say it was Everson Griffin, but I'm not sure. But the Vikings pulled an upset.
They absolutely did. All right, my first pick one for Paulie.
Yeah.
It was 2018.
2018.
Week 1. Niners at U.S. Bank Stadium.
Okay. So that was Kirk Cousins' first game. And the Vikings won. And Jimmy Garoppolo threw a pass to Mike Hughes for a pick 6. And that's all I got.
Yeah, you were perfect.
Well, there's more, but that's what sticks out in the pick one for Paulie equation.
We're still on air we're still working our way. I'm having an issue with my sounders on the button bar.
Your sounders or the phone or both? Anyway.
Everything has gone wrong today, but the phone's not on me.
Yeah, so Cousins' first start.
Yeah.
Mike Hughes pick 6. And the Vikings won.
Yeah, Diggs had a TD. Dante Pettis late in that game, I think, scores a touchdown to make it close, but ultimately 24-16, the final. Let me jump back to 2008, PA, a season in which the Vikings would win the NFC North. They'd play in a playoff game against the Eagles. We know that. Don't throw it to... So was it Asante Samuel?
Don't throw the way of Asante Samuel. Pick on Sheldon Brown. Tavares throws the way of Asante Samuel, and he gets a pick 6 that basically wins the game.
What about a Week 5 Monday night thriller against the New Orleans Saints down in the Bayou?
Okay, 2008 Week 5. Sidney Rice was questionable, and I don't believe he played. And that was a big talker up to the game. Antoine Winfield blocked a field goal and subsequently slid down the stanchion and was fined at least $25,000. The Vikings won the game on Monday Night Football at New Orleans. The night before, the knucklehead factor was thicker than usual for me. I decided I'm going to smoke 2 cigars while walking up and down Bourbon Street and inhale them. So I don't know what the early stages of that game sounded like. My voice was a freaking wreck in that game.
Reggie Bush had 2 punt return TDs that game as well.
Ooh.
And it was Longwell with 13 seconds left.
Was that the Winfield game?
That was the Winfield game.
Did Sidney play?
First quarter, I'm looking it up right now. Sidney Rice.
I don't think he played.
Sidney Rice did not play.
Right. He was on the trip. Chatted with him in an elevator heading to the bus. He thought he was going to play and did one of those on-field workout bits. You're out.
And who led the team in receptions that night?
For the Vikings in 2008, that night, it would have been, let's see, Percy 09, Sidney a rookie and he's not playing. I would say Travis Taylor.
It was Bobby Wade with 8 receptions.
The former Bear. I got all his albums.
Bernard Berry and had a touchdown.
Thank you.
All right, another one.
Okay,
here.
So pick one for Paulie. What do you think? It's weird.
No, but I'm realizing because my next one is going to be 2013, Week 14,
all right,
at the Baltimore Ravens.
Week 2013 at the Ravens. That was a Christmas game. And the quarterback for the Ravens was Kyle Bowler. They beat us. They were en route, I believe, to a playoff season. And the Vikings were having one of they were
5-10-1 that year.
Yeah, and that was the
Matt Flynn tie game at Lambeau.
I believe that was the penultimate in the season, which means the second to last before Leslie was out. But what I do remember is it was a Christmas game. Kyle Bowler was quarterback for the Ravens, and we lost. So hopefully that's enough in the old pick one for Paulie.
Well, I'm a little disappointed on this one.
What?
Because it was Joe Flacco.
Oh, okay.
In 2013.
Stop. Yep. Thank you. So let's see. 13 goes back to 9 here. 8, 7, 6. 2005 was the Christmas game with Kyle Bowler.
Okay.
I apologize.
This one was December 8th.
Yeah. Well, this one, about the only way to describe this is if you had a large wager on an under.
There you go.
Okay.
You're going, yep.
I mean, because you played the weather game, and you know what? Hey, I believe this AccuWeather forecast that the snow's going to be like 10 inches high middle of the third quarter. I'm crushing the under. You were the smartest speculator in the history of speculating until they got to the fourth quarter, and they combined for like 42 points.
It was 42 in the fourth.
Cordero Patterson had one of the most beautiful runs on a screen or a swing pass that I've seen in every game I've ever called for the Minnesota Vikings.
It's an amazing highlight.
And Flacco won the game back left of the end zone by hitting tight end Todd Heap.
It was Marlon Brown.
Marlon Brown?
It was Marlon Brown.
Was the last touchdown.
Well, this is the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
38 seconds in, Jerome Simpson gets the score.
Yeah, hold on. So what's the score into the fourth?
It is 7-6 Ravens into the fourth.
7. Let's put the total at 45.
Okay, perfect.
7-6 with 1 quarter to go, and it's snowing with wind.
You are already in line.
You can't lose
at the book to cash the bet.
You can't lose. And you lost.
38 seconds in, it's Jerome Simpson into the end zone. Then that's it for scoring until 2:05 remaining in the game.
You've got to be kidding me.
It's Dennis Pitta from 1 yard out.
Yeah. Pitta was who I was thinking about, not Heap.
30 seconds later, Toby Gerhart with the 41-yard touchdown. Jacoby Jones ensuing kickoff for 77. Cordero Patterson then 79. And then they still, with less than 40 seconds left,
Flacco.
They found a way to get down the field, and it was Marlon Brown with 4 seconds left.
Pick one for Paulie. Okay, so that I didn't whiff, but I didn't home run either.
Well, you went the bowler route because you were going obscure, but then I could see your eyes light up, and you're like, oh yeah,
I got it.
This freaking game.
All right, let's pause the. We don't want to be late for the 10 of Fitz, which is around the corner. Pick one for Paulie. 64686 if you like it, you want more, you don't like it, or anything in between. We'll be right back.
I can't wait.
All right, we got how much longer do we have? 2.5 minutes?
Yeah, about 2.5.
Pick another one for Paulie. I'm enjoying it. Now, and what it is it involves Minnesota Vikings games that I have called. From the first game, 2002, at regular season or postseason only place. We could probably handle preseason, but those are the preferred. But the first game that I called for the Vikings radio network as the play-by-play guy was in Champaign, Illinois, against the Chicago Bears while Soldier Field was being remodeled. And the most recent one was at Ford Field to win the 2023. Anything in between?
All right, I'm going to go way back, though. I'm going 2002. Week 17 season finale, PA, at the Lions. Your first year.
Okay. Well, the Vikings the previous week had beaten the New Orleans Saints at New Orleans, and that snapped a 17-game road losing streak. This was concluding Mike Tice's first year as head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings crushed Joey Harrington and the Detroit Lions. Corey Chavis either had a pick six.
He did.
Yeah, he had a pick six. And this was the game also, I believe, their long snapper, Don Muehlbach. Was it a game right down to the wire?
It was a game right down to the wire against Mike McMahon.
Yes, and the Lions lost by 1, correct?
They lost by 2.
Okay. And I believe Don Muehlbach, a rookie long snapper from Texas A&M, Antoine Winfield came in from the right side of the offensive line to try to block an extra point. Well, no, that wasn't the game. That probably was the next year. But the Vikings definitely won, and they went from losing, I think, 17 in a row on the road to a 2-game road winning streak.
Well, how about this? Todd Light. I mean, this game was insane.
Isn't it fun? Now, I haven't looked back at these old school box scores
the
in a
old
while.
name bit is unbelievable. Robert
sweet.
Porsche had a defensive fumble recovery in the end zone.
Oh, Porsche was still with them.
Todd Light had a field goal block return touchdown, 75 yards.
The kicker for the Vikings in 2002 would have been, Aaron Elling?
It was still Gary.
Oh, Gary Anderson.
It was still Gary.
Got you.
And he had the field goal with a minute left. Scotty Anderson with a pass from Mike McMahon.
Right.
Chance to go for 2. The attempt failed.
Pick one for Paulie any day, I guess. Don't know when we're going to drop it back in, but that was a lot of fun. Thank you for doing that, Nordo. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
He's Eric Nordquist. He produces 9 to noon, and I'm Paul Allen. Brandon Molesky and the Ten of Fitzgerald. The Ten of Fitz sets sail around the corner on your favorite radio station, FM 100.3 KFAN. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for the good times, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
If it's good news or money, leave a message.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.